Hello everyone and welcome to my The Bold Fans channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. For weeks, there had been simmering tension in the Finnegan household, a low burn that could explode at any time. Steffi Forrester Finnegan seemed to be carrying more than just the weight of their recent disputes as she made her way through their home's rooms. Since Finn's return, they had hardly discussed the Monaco tragedy. Every time Steffi glanced at her husband, the memory of Sheila Carter sitting next to him on that trip, and the way Finn had opted for silence over candor still seared in her chest. In a daze of alcohol and heartache, she had tossed her ring at him on the beach, cried all the way home, and then crossed a line she never would have imagined. There had been Carter Walton. In the vacant offices of Forrester Creations, two individuals whose marriages were failing during the same cruel week had met. Just one evening. One error. Weeks later, Steffi was staring at a positive pregnancy test in her own home's bathroom, her hands shaking so much that she almost dropped it into the sink. She was aware that there was a chance. The timing was disastrous. After visiting Monaco, Finn returned home in a desperate attempt to make repairs. Carter's own suffering with Daphne had been overwhelming him. The test in her hand verified what her body had already started to murmur, and the window was wide open. 3 days prior, morning sickness had begun. Period was missed. An increasing feeling of dread that could not be dispelled by denial. Steffi concealed the test behind unused cosmetics brand samples and outdated makeup in the back of a drawer. She assured herself that she would solve the problem. She would retake the exam. She was going to wait. Before anybody else knew, she would figure out whose child it was. Already treading carefully, Finn had promised restraining orders against Sheila and vowed to always pick Steffi. How could she look him in the eye and acknowledge that she had fabricated one truth while he had been concealing another? Naturally, Sheila Carter had never been one to leave well enough alone. She had been observing. Constantly observing. Sheila started gathering pieces after the divorce from Deacon was finally finalized, and after Steffi's unyielding will repeatedly prevented her from having supervised visits with Finn and young Hayes. Here's a quote from a nurse at the hospital where Finn was employed. Steffi appeared pale and preoccupied in the office. Carter had begun to steer clear of some topics. Sheila has sources all over the place. She had always done so. She made her move in the late afternoon. Steffi was still at Forrester Creations with a last-minute design dilemma. Hayes was napping, and Finn was spending a rare few hours by himself at home. Sheila showed up at the door, her countenance a familiar blend of hardness and tenderness. After hesitating, Finn opened the door for her. He had been making a lot of effort to think she might change. His mother was still the same woman who had shot him and almost destroyed everything. Biology was a difficult subject. They took a seat in the living room. At first, Sheila spoke cautiously about how much she had thought, how much she understood Steffi's suffering, and how all she wanted was to be close to her grandson. As always, Finn listened, caught between the guy who had almost died due to the woman across from him and the youngster who had grown up without explanations. Sheila leaned forward after that. Using her preferred name, which still seemed weird to him, she remarked, "There's something you need to know, John." Finn's posture tensed as he said, "Something about your wife. If this is another attempt to make me dislike Steffi." "It's not." Sheila's voice faltered. "I swear it isn't. I discovered it by chance. Heard a chat. She took a test. Finn, Steffi is expecting." The words hung in the air like smoke. "And the timing? The timing does not line up with you being the only possibility." For a little while, Finn looked at her, certain that he had misheard. Expecting a child. Steffi. The term itself ought to have made him happy. One more kid. One more opportunity. However, the second part of the statement struck like a blow to the body. "What are you discussing?" Sheila didn't grin. She refrained from gloating. She just stated what she knew, or at least what she said she knew. The evening following Monaco. The workplace. Carter. Steffi's morning sickness. The way she had been reticent, guarding specific talks and drawers. Sheila had put it together with the same unwavering determination that she had used to plot her way into the Forrester family. Finn got to his feet so quickly that the chair scraped the floor. "You're lying." "I wish I was." Sheila stood up more slowly. "I am aware of the harm I have caused to this family. I understand why Steffi despises me. However, I am also aware of what happens when a woman harbors a secret that has the potential to ruin everything. You should ask her. Observe her. Look at her closely." He wanted to toss her out. She was the same toxic presence she had always been, and he wanted to yell that. However, the uncertainty grew because of the cautious manner in which she spoke and the lack of victory. Recently, Finn had noticed Steffi recoil when he reached for her. He had observed how she shied away from some subjects and how, as the days went by, she became more reserved rather than more irate. He had blamed it on the pain he still felt for Sheila. He felt sick to his stomach when a new explanation emerged. Without saying anything further, Sheila slipped out the door just as silently as she had come in. For a considerable amount of time, Finn stood in the center of the living room and listened to Hayes's gentle movements upstairs. He was waiting for Steffi when she got home that night. Her smile was wan and robotic as she entered the room bearing the burden of a long day. Finn didn't give it back. He just gave her a serious face, just as Sheila had instructed. He said, "We need to talk." Steffi's expression shifted. Her meticulous poise, which she had kept for weeks, began to fracture. "What about it?" "The evening following Monaco." "Concerning Carter." "Regarding the possibility that you are pregnant." There was complete silence after that. Steffi lost control of her purse and it fell on the ground. Her face lost so much color that Finn briefly feared she may pass out. She parted her lips, then shut them again before speaking in a scarcely audible voice. "How did you, Sheila?" Just the name was sufficient. Steffi's gaze flickered from sheer rage to something more like to despair. As if her legs could no longer support her, she collapsed onto the closest chair. Finn stood there waiting with his arms folded. She said, "I was going to tell you. I promised that I was. I simply had to be certain." "So it's true," I said flatly. "I needed to know whose it was first." "You have a pregnancy." Steffi put both hands over her face and said, "And it might not be mine." The drinking, the shared anguish, the moment of weakness that had seemed both inevitable and awful at the same time, the story came out in pieces. The following morning, she had woken up in a panic. Everything had been concealed by her. She had taken 2 tests in secret, both of which came back positive. This was the exact moment she had been afraid of. Finn paid attention without interjecting. The only sound in the room when she was done was the house's gentle groan as it settled around them. The floor seemed to have moved beneath his feet. The man who had apologized for concealing Sheila's existence for weeks now had to deal with a much bigger secret. It burned with hypocrisy. He had been asked to be completely honest with Steffi about his mother. She had previously broken up with him for less. She had carried this, nevertheless. Finally he added, "I don't know what to say to you. Say you despise me. Declare it to be finished." He shook his head and said, "Just say something." "I am unable to. Not yet." The next few days were a difficult, cautious tango. Without being asked, Steffi entered the guest room. After spending a lot of time in the hospital, Finn would spend even more time at night gazing at their bedroom ceiling. He considered Hayes. He considered the child that might or might not be growing inside his wife. He considered Carter Walton, whom he had thought of as a friend, and the simultaneous betrayal that came from both sides. As expected, Sheila did not vanish. Quietly, she made one call to Finn. "I'm sorry I had to tell you. However, you were entitled to the truth." Finn nearly hung up on her, saying, "Whatever you decide, I hope you know I'm here." Nearly. Rather, he began to wonder, why? "Why do you tell me now?" "Because I've seen enough marriages fail due to secrets," she replied. "And because, as much as Steffi will never believe it, I don't want my son to live the rest of his life wondering." Regardless of whether Sheila's intentions were sincere or still perverted by her unquenchable need to play a major role in Finn's life, the damage was already done. The secret was revealed. Between Steffi and Finn, the truth was like a live being, developing and breathing with a child that neither of them could yet definitively claim. As soon as it was medically feasible, Steffi set up a private DNA test. The wait seemed to go on forever. While this was going on, the two of them were in a peculiar state of being, civil for Hayes's sake, courteous in public, broken in private. Carter's expression when he saw Steffi again was a mix of shame and what could have been hope, and he must have received the news somehow because it always circulated in their circle. For the time being, Daphne, who was still mending her own marriage, was fortunately ignorant. Finn was the one who opened the envelope when the results were ultimately delivered. Steffi sat at the kitchen table across from him, her knuckles white from clenching her hands so tightly. He took one look at the paper. But then again, there was a long period of stillness. Finally he uttered the harsh words, "It's mine." Steffi let out a rush of breath that sounded almost like a sob. Her face was so totally filled with relief that she briefly appeared lighter and younger. The same sense of relief washed over Finn, but it was quickly followed by a flood of complex anguish. He owned the child. The treachery was still present. There was still that night with Carter. The weeks of deceit persisted. Sheila continued to play a part in making it public. He carefully put the paper down. He said, "I don't know how we come back from this." Steffi started to reach across the table, but she stopped herself. "Neither do I. But I'd want to give it a shot." Finn stared at her for a while before saying, "If you'll let me." He recalled all the times they had overcome the seemingly insurmountable. Sheila's bullet, the memory loss, the unending meddling of the past. He imagined the new life that would eventually join them, as well as Hayes sleeping above. He considered how their greatest strength and most perilous weakness had always been love. He said, "I need time. I also require honesty, total integrity. No more secrets, not from you, not from me." Steffi nodded, not even to defend one another. She did not turn away even as tears streamed down her face. "You possess it, whatever it takes." Outside, the twilight in Los Angeles took on its typical gentle radiance. Sheila Carter sat by herself somewhere in the city, possibly pondering whether the truth she had brought into the public eye would get her closer to her son or drive her farther away. The lengthy, uncertain process of determining if this most recent breach might be mended began in the Finnegan home between two people who had come dangerously close to losing each other more times than they could remember. The pregnancy was no longer a secret. The startling reality had been revealed. The more difficult question was whether love could still find a path forward after all of its hardships. If the most recent bold and the beautiful spoiler plot is any guide, Sheila Carter might be the only person with the knowledge that could ruin everything Steffi has built with Finn. The secret surrounding Steffi Forrester's pregnancy could soon become one of the most explosive revelations in Los Angeles. Steffi has always battled valiantly to keep her family, marriage, and kids safe, but this time, it might be nearly impossible to keep the truth safe. When Steffi discovers that something in her life is changing more quickly than she can manage, trouble starts. The constant drama between the Forrester, Spencer, and Logan families has put her under enough emotional strain already. However, a pregnancy would fundamentally alter the power dynamics. Although Steffi is aware that telling Finn would be the right thing to do, she might be reluctant for another reason. This spoiler scenario suggests that Steffi might find out she's pregnant and be overcome with fear right away. She may initially persuade herself that everything will be all right. They already have a family together, Finn adores her, and the news of another child should be exciting. However, Steffi may come to the conclusion that the timing could not be worse when she starts to consider everything that is going on around them. Finn has already been drawn into complex family disputes, and Steffi is well aware of the perilous nature of secrets. Before telling him, she might decide she needs a little more time. Regretfully, Steffi never would have thought that concealing her pregnancy from Finn could lead to a far more serious issue. When Sheila learns the truth, it's the biggest twist. One of the most erratic individuals in Finn's life has always been Sheila. Because of her obsession with her son, she has frequently found herself in circumstances where setting boundaries doesn't seem to matter. Sheila has a knack of gathering information that allows her another chance to meddle, even when Finn wishes to keep his distance from her. Sheila might unintentionally find out about Steffi's pregnancy before Finn does in this plot. She might learn medical information, overhear a private discussion, or just pick up on something about Steffi that no one else has noticed. Sheila would quickly realize the immense power this knowledge bestows upon her, regardless of the approach. Sheila could be quite silent at first. She should keep a close eye on Steffi instead of running to Finn and telling him she was pregnant. Sheila may choose to hold off until the ideal time because she is aware that Steffi will eventually have to tell Finn. Steffi would be unaware that someone else is aware of the facts, which would make the situation much more terrifying. Then Sheila may start giving Finn tiny clues. She may say that Steffi isn't telling him some things. She might remind Finn that people occasionally conceal things out of fear of the repercussions. Sheila might keep pushing even if Finn could at first write off her remarks as just another attempt to control him. Finn grows increasingly suspicious the more Sheila speaks. Finn may not believe anything his mother says without evidence because he is aware of her tendency to cause turmoil. But soon, Sheila might divulge enough details to have him face Steffi. Imagine Finn asking Steffi directly if she has anything to tell him when he gets home. Steffi would be aware of Sheila's conversation right away. The married pair may have a heated argument as a result. Because she wants to be in charge of how the news is presented, Steffi may at first reject everything. However, Finn could see that she was hesitant. He might wonder why Sheila seems to know something that he does not and why she is suddenly anxious. At some point, Steffi was forced to acknowledge the reality. She has a pregnancy. Finn might be stunned for a second. He could be shocked that Steffi withheld such crucial information from him. However, he may not be angry. Alternatively, he can get emotional because he wants to celebrate the pregnancy itself. The issue is that a single question would soon complicate happiness. Why did Steffi keep it a secret? The plot may revolve around that question. Steffi could say that she was afraid. She could explain that she wanted some time to think things through before telling him. Maybe she was concerned about the impact of another pregnancy on their family, or that their marriage would be threatened by external drama once more. Finn might feel deceived even though he could comprehend her worry. He could assure Steffi that she would never have to deal with such a significant issue by herself. Sheila would not necessarily be done, even though that poignant time would make the pair closer. Sheila might actually take advantage of the circumstance to put them at odds. She may assert that Steffi is concealing more than a pregnancy. That charge would be disastrous. Sheila can argue that Steffi's reticence indicates Finn is unaware of another aspect of the narrative. She might purposefully make Finn wonder if Steffi had been hiding anything from him other than the pregnancy. The plot might take an even more sinister turn at this point. Sheila would require more than just the pregnancy to ruin Steffi's relationship with Finn. She would require uncertainty. Sheila is also skilled at creating doubt. Sheila might start giving Finn tidbits of knowledge instead of giving them all at once. She may claim to be aware of the events leading up to Steffi's pregnancy. She might imply that Steffi has been concerned about a personal secret. Sheila may make Finn swear to listen before disclosing anything, even though Finn might insist on answers. Steffi would be in an impossible situation as a result. She might be aware that Sheila is getting ready to reveal something that could drastically alter Finn's perception of her. Steffi might make a valiant effort to persuade Finn that Sheila is controlling him, but the more sentimental she gets, the more Finn would question whether Sheila's accusations are true. Steffi's anxiety about the pregnancy itself could be another startling secret. Maybe she's learned something during a doctor's checkup that she hasn't yet shared with Finn. Perhaps there's a problem, or perhaps the pregnancy has brought up issues that she finds difficult to address. The plot may leave viewers wondering what Sheila actually knows. Sheila would relish every moment of the ambiguity. She might speak with Steffi in private and let her know that she is aware of the pregnancy. Sheila would probably be cautioned by Steffi to avoid Finn and her family. Sheila, however, might reverse the warning. When Finn finds out, she might inform Steffi that she has the final say. Steffi would be enraged by that. Steffi might accuse Sheila of attempting to ruin her marriage once more during a heated argument between the two ladies. But Sheila would argue that she's just defending her son. She would contend that Finn should be informed of everything, regardless of how unpleasant the truth may be. Steffi would be aware that Sheila's approach to Finn's defense has always involved stirring up controversy. She might inform Sheila that nothing Sheila says would alter Finn's decision to choose his family. However, Sheila may grin and show that she has evidence. That one statement has the power to alter everything. What evidence might Sheila have? This is the point at which the plot conjecture becomes really intense. Sheila might have learned information about Steffi's pregnancy that Finn is unaware of. It might be a chat, a message, a medical detail, or even something from Steffi's history that she never thought would come up again. If Steffi doesn't give her something in exchange, Sheila can threaten to divulge the knowledge. Steffi might reject since she would never consent to Sheila controlling her family. Sheila might be forced to handle things herself as a result.